Physiology is a great feedback. It's a great touchstone, because it's always with you, right? And if you just bring it down to its simplest um, realization is contraction, and that's tension of any kind, then you've collapsed into the separate identity. I am someone, I am something, and I'm separate from. When you see it, and I can tell the way you ask the question, that you use that as a feedback, then you go, oh, open up. And you call that relaxation. I call that just open space. Give it the openness. And then there you are as consciousness. So just that practice, that simple practice, will not only liberate the unconscious contraction, sort of the collapsing, I am the thought, I am the tension, I am the story. And that, seeing that, frees that up. It literally liberates it or transmutes it. And then you'll just begin to see that now you're functioning in this open space. That's why that radiant open mirror is such a great help into understanding actually what is. Because then, you're open, period, no matter what the appearance is. And then contraction can happen, anxiety can happen, anger can happen, all sorts, but there's no collapse into I am that. Do you hear that? That's the difference. That's the only difference. Is I am this that's appearing, or I am that this is appearing in. And it may take a while because the habit is so strong. But just that practice will totally transmute the life. I think that you need to find your own little mantra. Something that really speaks to you. I've shared mine, and I use it over and over and over. And it's, if I'm lost in a thought and the story starts to gather around that thought, because if you really notice, it's one little thought and then a web of thoughts and past and familiarity starts to cloud around it. And then there you are, right? I now identified with the story. So if I watch that happening, it's just stop. And then something drops out of the story, because if you see, the story is in the head and it's wave-like little chaos, little patterns. Stop. Open, just what we were talking about. Just open the attention, open the body, open the energy all around the body, and then rest. Now that speaks to me, but maybe someone else has something else that it's just a remembrance. I'm not the thoughts, I'm not the web, I'm not the identity. It can come and go, I can play in that identity, but I am not bound and defined by that identity. So if that happens 50 times a day, in a very short period of time, you'll begin to function from this open, spacious awareness. And no matter what's happening, it doesn't really matter at that point. But for a while, it takes a, shifting gears, so to speak. But I think it's helpful maybe if everyone finds their own little mantra that helps. Open up, or open attention, or here I am, or open-hearted clarity. Right, but it's just that simple little, and it's like it becomes, I know for months I went through just, I love you. No matter what was coming up, no matter what was being said, no matter what was happening here, I love you. Maybe 500, 1,000 times a day. And I started to notice then that it was just literally dissolving and burning old habitual thoughts and identities and reactions. And then that kind of fell away. It still happens, but maybe now it's, it changes. But it has to be not dead and automatic. It needs to be alive. then, because that's what happens, is we just get into then, stop, it doesn't really work. So, but that's a good question, because that's what that's where we're at collectively, is living it, no matter what. And because of the great grace and the great power that's pouring through the earth at this time, there's a lot of support and assistance, and the transformation's really accelerated. So, but we have to show up for it. I find where it's most prominent in the body. Mm-hmm. And then I open up and let that just be prominent and do what it's going to do without trying to control it. But now there's an open, spacious, but yet a precise clarity at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And then usually it moves on its own. And if it doesn't, I go take a hot bath. And I try it again. And usually it's already gone. Right. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's the more mature this becomes, the less storied it is. It's just becomes sensation and energy mostly. And it doesn't really matter. It's the mind that really wants the story and the clarity, and that can be helpful. But I think more and more it's just energy moving. And sometimes it's like, who does it belong to? Right? Oh. Does it belong to this person, or does it belong to my mother, or does it belong to a next door neighbor, or And I think that's also helps to untie, because it's collective. We're so moving into the collective at this point. You can say, this works for me, this doesn't. Easy. But yeah, boundaries in my world have totally dissolved. But, you can say more easily, actually, no, or it doesn't work.
Then it doesn't get rigid.
It doesn't get rigid. There's nothing in there like throwing down boundaries.
Yeah.
And maybe for a while boundaries are important because we didn't have any, for those of us who, just didn't know how to do that. Then it's an important phase. But I see people really try to then live that way. And it's just another position. And, yes or no. I used to say, and I still do, it's because it's an old habit, but I see what I do quicker and quicker is I'll say yes, and then I'll kind of grouch around about it. You go, honey, say yes or no. If you say yes, take it all the way through. If you say no, it's easy. There's no residue. And that was a hard one. It's easier and easier and easier. Because there's no one in there that has to be defended and defined and this and that and the other. I think first you almost have to find a place that you say yes and you say no, because you never knew how to do that before. Okay. And then, if you just stay open, you move into, there's no one in there to defend or define. Mm-hmm. But, you can still just say, no, doesn't work for me. And it's that clean. And people actually respond to it. Again, my teacher is a good teacher that way. He's he just meets life in this beautiful, open way. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it's real clear. And I've enjoyed watching him through the years, I like to watch him when he's answering questions. And sometimes the questions have a real aggressive edge, or, it's not a clean kind of energy. And he'll just, and that's it. And it's very clear. Mm-hmm. You don't, people just then turn around and go sit down. If we let go, then first we disappear, right? That we know ourselves as. Or when we, maybe especially I think really young children, when we weren't on it, bad things happen or unpredictable things happen. So I think somehow that gets drawn in. But in my own experience, if I just, like you said, you enjoy this moment, whether it's washing dishes, whether it's editing, whether it's folding your clothes, you're here and life is folding clothes, you know. And then maybe you find yourself going into the bathroom and you're brushing your teeth. And I find that I find myself in my office and something's happening here. And I notice that I actually get more things done living that way than I do this real strong structure. I mean, sometimes you need a structure just because of a time crunch. But you know what I'm saying? It's like something knows how to do what needs to be done without the overlay. But you just have to like kind of enter into that place of not knowing and loss of control. And for most of us, that's, you know, for me, I don't think I had so much bad things happen. It was more like, it'll never get done. I'll drop the ball, or there was something there. And I just had to sort of see that I'm not controlling it.
Yeah.
But if I give it over to the greater wisdom, it knows how to do it without the stress and the tension and the, you know. I think it's showing up to what life is asking.
Yeah.
You know, rather than, you know, I know I'm like you. I think creative people are quite happy fuddy-duddying around in the garden, or, you know, working with something at your table, or, you know, whatever. It's life itself. And so work and money and business and success and ambition isn't really the moving force. So it's challenging to realize that whatever is asking and you show up, and money follows. It may not be, you know, the abundance that maybe we all think we need, but you'll notice it's all taken care of if you just show up to the moment of what's asked. And I think it's helpful. I mean, you do. You're true to what you want to offer. It's being true to that too. You know, what is your heart's joy and desire really? And some of us go, well, you know, I'd like to. Sometimes I'll say, well, I'd just like to retire. But if I really look, serving the recognition of oneself and the freedom of living in that openness, there's no greater passion than that here. So I show up for that. And maybe someone else has a very, very different, you know, way of that service and arising and deep joy comes in different ways. I have a lot of friends who are artists, and for them it's when the creative current is moving, right? There's nothing better. So I don't know, everyone finds it in their own way, but I think it's challenging I just was never born with ambition or competition or business, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying in this culture, it's interesting it just isn't that moves me. So I do know in my own life, the more I'm open and empty to the reality, which of course then creates a great fullness and a vitalness, the more money just happens. And it just happened automatically. Yeah, I remember Eckhart Tolle was saying that the prayer is that I can be an inspiration and receive what is required to be that inspiration, rather than I want to be a famous writer. Because, you know, one is that ego limited structure, and the other is I want to be an inspiration that opens to all beings and the totality. Because, you know, life is abundant. That's the reality.